Hello everyone, welcome back to my Morro Bay Speedway racetrack. Today I'm going to finish the build exercise for this toy box, and to help me out with that, I've got Captain Barbosa with me. So the first thing we're going to do is finish putting down the rest of the terrain, and we left off over here in this corner. And that's with respect to the bridge. The starting line is over there on the left, just to kind of give you an idea of where we're at. And we'll begin with this short canyon curve, and I'm going to line this up. I get this up here next to the bounding box for this thing. We're going to put it right on the corner of the bounding box for this cliff. So just like that. That's where this piece needs to go. And let me pull up my screen grab here. All right. So the next piece will be this large and short canyon curve. This is going to fit in here like this. And as you can see, that leaves just a little narrow gap there for the shortcut. So taking the shortcut is handy, but you need to make sure you're pretty accurate when you come around that corner. And then this sits in here right up against those cliffs just like that. And then because we have this gap in here, we need to plug that. And so we'll go ahead and, well, let's see. Let's go ahead and use a solid block for this, I think. Would be a little bit better than trying to put a cliff piece in there, because the player is going to be up here on this cliff here, so they could potentially see the gap back there if we don't put something solid in there. So I think that's good to do that. Alright, so that takes care of that section of the track. Next piece we'll look at is over here, and this will be the little cave by the whale's mouth. And let's go ahead and pick this cliff piece up over here again, because we're going to need this. I'll put that down, and we'll drag this over here. Okay, so for this, we're going to start with this narrow cliff ledge. And I'm going to put it up here about one block back. So about like this. And I want to make sure we have enough room in here for one of these pieces to sit in. So that's about right. I think this is probably the better width to judge by. Yeah, so that's, you can see the bounding boxes there. So I'm leaving enough room for one of these pieces. And then we'll put in the cliff piece, followed by another cliff ledge like that. Okay. And then we'll put in the cave cliff like so. And another large cliff next to that. Okay. And then this is going to sit out here, lining it up with the edge of the cliff corner down the way there. Alright, and then we'll pick this piece up and put it down to get us back to that part of the drawer. And we need this small terrain block. That's going to sit in here just like this. Followed by this piece, which will sit in here and form a ceiling for that cave, like that. And you don't necessarily need this, but I'm going to put it in anyway. We're going to scroll over to the left a little ways from those cliff pieces. And I'm looking for this piece, just to kind of put a finishing decorative edge on that. so it doesn't look so blocky. Not that the player's necessarily going to see that when they're racing, but it just looks better to me. Alright, so there's the cave for the third shortcut, which will be through the whale's mouth. And then the last section of terrain that we need is right up here for the final cave. So on this one, let me grab my screenshot here. Figure out the best way to do this. Okay. So we're going to start back here on this corner. We're going to come back to the right to the cave pieces. And I'm looking for the cave corner, which would be this piece. And this is going to sit like this, and I want it centered on the track. The left edge centered on that track. And then we'll carry it back here to the edge of the terrain, like that. Okay? And from there, we'll pick up the cave wall. We're going to put a row of these along here. The final one overlapping that seam. And then we'll flip it around and put one on this side. Okay. And then from here, let's work our way around the perimeter of the cave from this end. So we're going to put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like that. And this will be the exit for the cave. And we'll put that one up there like that. And then we're going to have a little bend in the cave here, so we need this outer corner piece. Put that one in like that. And on this end, we're going to need, let's see. Trying to figure out exactly what I need is going to be a little tricky. So 2. Alright, and then the corner, I believe, will be the next piece. Yeah, because that'll put us up next to the straight edge there. So like that, like that. And then this piece in here like that. This one in here like that. So there's our tunnel and the interior of the cave. And I've left enough space in here for the cars to kind of cut this corner a little bit. Sometimes the AI cars will do that, so we want to make sure we leave this open. Alright, and then we will go ahead and put the ceiling on, which is this cave ceiling piece. And we'll just fill in this space. And that will finish off the interior of that area. And then once again, let's pick this piece up to get back to that part of the drawer. And we'll fill in the gaps around the track. And this is where it gets a little bit interesting. Because we're going to be hitting that piece of that ramp there. And I was not expecting that. Well, let me go offline and take a look at this, and I'll be back in just a moment. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that, I got confused. That piece can't go there. What I did was actually to use the cliff pieces here to try to fit something in here. So this is where I got a little confused, because I had a screenshot of this, but couldn't see it from the angle that I was looking at. So this is what I had done. And this gets around that piece of track. Alright, so that piece fits in there like that. We're going to put another one over on this side. This piece will kind of line it up with the front edge of this, and we'll stick a terrain block in there in just a moment. But let's go ahead and come over here and finish off this edge before we jump back to that part of the terrain. Alright, and now let's go ahead and jump back over there. Pick that piece up and put it down. Now we can fit in the rest of the terrain up here. We'll put that in there, and we'll put this one up here. You'll notice there's a little bit of lag that has been introduced now. And these pieces here, these cave pieces, appear to be what's doing it. So that's why I saved this section of the track for last, because it just slows things down and bogs it down a little bit. Alright, so there is the first level of our underwater cave. And now we need to put in the underwater mount that goes on top of this and the track that goes around it. And I think probably the best thing to do would be to start with the track. So let me back up here. And yeah. Alright, so I got my screen grab here. We're going to come back up to the racetrack pieces. And we're going to start with this short racetrack, and I'm going to line it up with the track that's down below. So you can kind of see the little blue box, the shadow underneath there. That's what I'm lining up with the track below. And then on the edge of this terrain like this. So we'll put that there. And then I believe 1, 2, and part, yeah, so that one, the long racetrack goes there. Oops. Because that would be a little bit too long, so that's why I need to fit that in there like that. And the reason I'm being a little picky about that is because I want the curve here to line up with the hole down here. So that's really, really important that this lines up. So when the player comes through there and rides the canyons, they're in the center of the track over here. And that's only going to work if the track there is in the right spot. Alright, and then we'll extend that out just a little bit with a straight section. Doesn't have to be a too long a one, because it'll stick off the end of the ramp or the cliff there otherwise. I think I went a little bit smaller on that. So I think we'll do, well, it doesn't matter. Let's go ahead and put that one in. There we go. I think the one I used was a little bit shorter, but that works just fine. Okay, so there's the track for the final shortcut. And now that we have that, now we can fit the mount in up here around that. So we'll pick that piece up and put it down to get back to this part of the drawer. And I'm going to line this up with the curve. And then we're just going to put the mount in up here like this and like that. Okay, and actually, as I'm looking at this, I'm noticing that this should not be up against the edge of this like that. So I need to bring this out one more level. This needs to be like this. And does that really matter? Probably not, except that I'd like to put some coral pieces up here on top of this thing, just so that it doesn't look like boring terrain. You want this to look like a coral reef. So it's important that we make sure it looks like that, which means we got to plug these holes under here. Okay, so now I have room to put some coral up on top of there. And this is why that track was kind of confusing me a little bit. Let's see, I think that's correct. We'll find out in just a second. Yeah, there we go. Oh, nope. It's got to go out a little bit further. So let's drop this right here. And I got to slide this out a half a block further. Okay, and then we'll slide this down. And we'll use the next size larger piece over here. Like that. And now we'll go ahead and grab the longer piece, and I can get this to go exactly where I want it to go, which is right there. Alright, so there we go. That looks correct. Okay. Now that all the terrain for the reef is in place, the next thing we'll do is add the buildings and set pieces. And there are 3 locations for those. The first is near the starting line, which is over here. The second is the graveyard of ships, which is over there. And the third is the whale. And let's go ahead and start with the whale since we were already over here. I just think that looks so much nicer than just that cave. And it's a little bit more interesting. And you'll find that, excuse me, under the set pieces drawer. Probably would have been faster to go the other way, but who knew? Not too many opportunities do you get to use this piece, so I wanted to make sure I used that. Okay, so there we go. And there is the whale's mouth that leads into that last shortcut. Now the next area is the start area over here, where we have a little bit of a town set up. And for this, we're going to use the Finding Dory pieces, which are under the buildings group right here. And let me pull up my screenshot of this just to make sure I've got these pieces in the right places. So I'm going to begin with this one. And we're going to put this up here next to this track. Something like this. Doesn't have to be too close, but... And we'll put this one in next, the little clam shooter. I'm going to put that right up next to that wall, about like so. And I'm just kind of putting these in a bit of a circle here. And this one will turn like this. And the next one will be the lantern. And We'll put that here. Let's see. Yeah, with the button facing out like that. Let's move our starting pad to the middle of the circle. And I want it facing towards the starting line there. Okay, and then the diver's helmet. We'll do that one next. And we'll kind of place that here, and it doesn't have to be perfect circle. The little hermit crab's mine. Put that one here like so. Try to space these out somewhat evenly. And then the Morro base store, we'll put that over here. Again, with the button facing in this direction. And these take up quite a bit of memory, but we have some memory to spare here, so and it's just kind of fun to play with these buildings. I really like those. And the last one we have is the little submarine here with the sonar. So we'll drop that over here like that. All right, the next section then, the final section, is the graveyard of ships, which is over here. And so I want to place some sunken ships here. And again, we'll go to the set pieces drawer for that. And we have a blue shipwreck. And we have a red one. And I kind of like the blue one because that really fits the theme here. But we want to leave enough room to put a couple little plants along the front there. So we'll put this in here like this. Let's see. About like that. And then I'm going to put a second one over here. Kind of like that. Can't go too far that way. That's about the best we can get it. And see, that's the prow of that ship covers up all the ugliness down there, so the player will never see that from the racetrack. So that's why we're not too worried about that. And if we scroll back over to the right, we have this sunken ship here from the Finding Dory playset. And we're going to place this like so. And we'll try to straddle that seam a little bit. Kind of put that on the edge like this, I think. And then we'll put another one over here. About like that. And that just kind of adds some interest here. And again, I like to make sure all of the areas of the toy box have kind of a unique look to them so the player kind of knows where they are. So you kind of start off in a little town area there. You're coming around the reef. You got the mines rolling out. Come over here through the graveyard of ships. And then you've got the canyon with the track winding around the mountain. You jump and then you're down here in the ruins. And you're driving through the ruins and more coral and stuff. And then you get out over here and you've got the cave right before the finish line. So you've got all these different areas, and you can kind of follow your progression around the track pretty easily that way. If everything looked the same, it'd be kind of hard to remember where you were on the track. So I like that. All right, now I just need to add in all the customizable plants for the reef and the ruins. So I'm going to go offline and do that because you don't need to watch me place each and every one of those. And then I'll be back and I'll show you the end result. Okay, I'm back and I've placed all of the plants. As you can see, there's a lot of them, but don't worry, I'm going to give you a slow flyby in a moment. But all of these plants are underneath the plants drawer. They're the fantasy terrain plants, these 9 plants here. That's all that I've used. And I need to flip around here just so I can place that. I went to pick this up, and now that little meter is pegged, which is interesting. Let's see if I come out over here, will it, nope, that little meter's pegged. Well, anyway, this plant goes here. So just so you remember that, that's Fantasy Terrain 4 with the flowers oriented that way. And as soon as I go into Spark mode, oh, it left it there. Yeah, with that little bounding box around it, but nothing I can do about that. Okay. So before I style all these, let me do that slow flyover so you can see which of the plants I've used and where. And we'll start here in town, and I've placed some of these plants around the perimeter of the little town here. And you can kind of see what I've done. And again, the exact placement of these doesn't matter, as long as you put them in the same basic place. Of course, if you're building this yourself, you can put them wherever you want. You don't have to put them where I did, but if you're trying to duplicate my toy box, this will be helpful for you. If you're not, you guys can fast forward until I get done with the fly-through and style these. But for those of you who are building this toy box, feel free to pause the video at any time so you can see what I've got and duplicate it for yourself. But here we come up to the reef, and along the reef, along the road, I've got just a couple of plants along here. A few of these little trees, as well as one lone tree out there. And then up here on this level, you can kind of see I've placed a few more of these. And once I style these, it'll just add some dimension to the reef, because this will all be coral and stuff. But you can kind of see what I've done here. And carried the plants along over this way just to kind of block the view from that road as you're looking out over that direction. So you just don't see that plain top of that cliff there. And then you can see I've got 2 plants over here that are kind of covering up that whole bit. So when you jump off of the ramp up there, you're not going to see those. And we'll get back around to that side in a moment. Okay, so let's pick up again over here. So you can see what the plants are that I've placed along here. I've got that little bitty one hiding back over here on this corner behind this big tree. So I didn't want you to miss that. A couple of plants up there. Some little plants along here. Then a couple more of those long skinny ones up on top of that ridge. And over here there's nothing because we have that road. But then we get back over here and we got a couple of long skinny ones there in the foreground. And some more plants on this side of the road. Some plants in here just to kind of fill the void between those 2 roads. And then these plants here just kind of hide the shipyard over there from the player's standpoint, and makes it look impassable so you can't try to drive through there, which the game probably wouldn't allow anyway. And then we get out over here. Got a couple more of those plants there, a big tree, and a few little plants here on this corner. Up on top of the seamount, I've got a few plants up here. And of course, over here along this way, we've got some plants on this level around the perimeter of this. And these are mainly just to see from down below there. and from over here on this ramp as you're coming up. So we want to be able to see those. And then on the top of this little ridge here, we've got a few plants before we hit the big ramp. Down here in the graveyard of ships, I got a few little trees that I've placed along there. And a couple over here. And a couple of them over here around the little shipwreck here. And then up here on top of this area, we've got some plants just kind of lining the edges and covering up that gap back there. Adding some interest when you're driving through the canyon and jumping over it. And a couple of long plants on the end of that. And then down here, this is what we have inside of the little crater here. So I'll try to give you a good look at these from different directions so that you can see how they're spaced. And then over here on this side, got that little piece there. Got a couple pieces underneath the bridge here. A couple pieces here in this corner. And then underneath the bridge, and you're probably going to find, I had to style this piece here to get it to go under there, but I changed all of these back just so you could see which piece they are that I'm using. Once I style these, you can see that this piece slides right underneath there. Alright, and then up here, those are the pieces that we have. Over on this edge, I'll get to that little structure there in a moment. We've got some pieces up here on top of the this ridge here, and again, just so it doesn't look completely flat, you want it to look like a rounded mound, more or less, of coral. So that adds a lot of visual interest. Over in this area, kind of see which plants I've used. And down inside here, and along the base, back to the town, and then up at the next level, got some plants up in there, some plants lining the edge, and I've placed a scalable barrier block here just to make it harder for the player to try to cheat and go off, take a shortcut there to the finish line. And likewise, I placed one here so the player doesn't fall down in that gap and get stuck. But I've lined the edge of this over here with some plants. And then we've got a few tucked back over in here. And then on this level, leading up to the bridge, got 3 of these long plants on this side of the road. Some plants lining this side. You can see they're not right up next to the edge of the road. They're back a little ways, so the player has some room to maneuver here. A couple of pieces out over here. Some pieces up here. And then on the other side of the bridge, we've got two of these pieces back to back. Some corner pieces lined up along here with a straight edge and another corner and a cluster of these. And some of these. And then on this end, a big tree there, and a few of these along here, like that. And then a line of these long, narrow ones along the top of this ridge, with a couple of corner pieces along here, and another long edge there. And just again, some more pieces along here. And then leading up to the whale. This little piece is kind of tucked away back there. A couple of narrow pieces along here. A few pieces up on top. A few pieces over here. And then I've got 4 of these trees with a piece of terrain on top of that. And the terrain is styled using the Princess Kita's World theme, the Atlantis theme that you see on the roads as well, with a couple of trees there and this tree sitting on top. And I did a similar sort of thing down here. You can see we've got the trees, another piece of terrain with another piece of terrain, and another tree here. And then over here by the cave coming out from the whale, oops, trying not to spin this around too much, but I'm failing. We've got the trees kind of spaced apart like that. And I think I already showed you the ones on this side. Looking again at that structure over here, kind of see how that's set up. All right, and then we get to the caves and we're almost done with the flyover. You can see how I've spaced the trees here around the front of this and along the edges. And then again up on top of the seamount, and I only did it on this end of the seamount because this is the only side that the player will be seeing. And then as you come off over here, a couple of these pieces along the edge, a couple of the smaller ones. So that's where I've placed the trees. And again, you don't have to get it exactly like I have it unless you're trying to duplicate my toy box exactly, but that should get you close enough. But now let's go ahead and style all of these, and most of these are going to use the Morro Bay theme. So I'm opening the styling menu for this, and as we go to the right, we're looking at the Morro Bay terrain strip. And some of these are going to be styled in the ruins, Atlantean ruins, but I'm going to right now do the bulk of these as Morro Bay. So I'm going to theme all. Are you sure? Yes. And that will change all of these. And that just makes it look really beautiful. It just looks so nice when you do that, as you can see. And now it really looks like a coral reef, especially as you race around this thing. All right, so now that we have all of those in, let's go and style the Atlantean ruins. And those begin over here in this basin. And there's probably 20 or so of these that we're going to style as that. So we're going to come over to this piece first, open the theme menu, and we're going to go to the left. And I'm going to change this to the Lost Empire. I'll apply that. I'm not going to set the theme because I don't want to change all of these. Same with this one over here. This one here we're going to change. Lost Empire Head Ruins. This one will also change. This one. And this gives you something else to look at besides the terrain. So this kind of really sets this area apart, which is helpful. Because you want some of these ruined pieces in here so it looks like you're driving through history. Alright, and let's see, I think, did I have, yeah, that one stays the same. Alright, and then this clam piece here, we're going to change that. That's the monolith. Over here along the edge of the road, we're going to change these pieces. And if you like those pieces that are there, you don't have to change these, but again, I really like this to look like you're driving through some ruins from some underwater civilization. So I like that. As we come up here around the corner, we're going to change this one as well. The rest of those can stay. And then these pieces up here, we're going to change this one. We're going to leave that one, and we'll come and change this one. And we'll switch this one over. And we'll leave the rest of those over there. Okay, these pieces here we're going to change. As well as these three pieces. So this one, this one, and the one in the middle. Okay. And then across the bridge, we'll change that piece. We're going to change this first piece, not the one on the back, but just the front. And this way, as you look at that, there's some growth behind that, which I thought kind of looked really interesting. Go ahead and change this piece here. We'll change this front piece on this one, which again just makes that look really interesting. And this piece here. Oh, as well as this one. Okay. And this piece on the other side. There we are. So that looks good. And then coming down over here, I'm going to change this one piece like that. And on this side of the road, I want to change this piece here. Yeah. Okay. And of course these can't be left this way, so we need to change these to be this pillar. Which just fits really nice under there, holding up that block. And we need to do the same with the ones down here while we're at it. The first one up there was actually on the side of the road. This one the player drives underneath, which makes it a little bit more interesting. Okay. And then up top, we're going to change this piece to put that nice edge on. That we're going to change to be the menhir, or the monolith rather. Here we go. And the same thing with these. Here we are. And that just adds a lot of visual interest because not everything is coral. So I like the look of that a lot. And one more piece I just saw. Change this one down here as well. So we got that head kind of sitting off to the side, which looks pretty cool. And with that, the build exercise for this toy box is done. Next week, we'll start working on the logic, beginning with the rolling mines. Until then, I want to thank you for watching, and I hope you have a great weekend. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, just click my photo in the lower right corner of this video and leave a comment before you go. I'd love to hear from you guys. Take care.